Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm going to be your captain. My name is Kevin, and we got a special set of shows coming up for you here live on Mondays. Union Federation episode 228, Star Trek Q episodes, Encounter at Farpoint, 1987 Next Generation. We're going to be talking about all the Q appearances that happened from Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. But first, guys, I want to let you guys know that we are here, of course, on the Fandom Podcast Network and, of course, the BQ in there. Please celebrate both us there and check us out. And, of course, there is the FPN Fandom Podcast Network QR code there. So give us a shout out there. We very much appreciate it. But let's introduce our crew. With me, as always, is my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. Please welcome, I think he's kind of my co-captain sometimes, security weapons officer, and of course, the lead P-Corner cleaner. Let's go ahead and welcome Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's up, buddy?
Well, I just tried to Riker in my chair and it didn't work out so well. So I might be a little injured for the rest of this podcast. But Kevin, you know, we've been talking about it. You know what I've been saying for a long time, what we need on the Union Federation?
What's that?
It's not more cowbell. It's more red shirts.
Exactly.
I think we might have done something today.
And we also had a little crossover with Star Wars there at the beginning. So there we go.
Yeah. What a piece of junk guys would be most appreciative.
All right. Let's first of all welcome the rest of our Union Federation crew founders here. Let's welcome, of course, our first officer and counselor here, and of course the founder of the BQN, the lovely Amy Nelson. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. So excited for this series.
We got a lot to talk about. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also part of the Federation crew, the Oracle and Science Officer. She's always fun when she tells us how it really is. Please welcome the lovely Haley Stoddard. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you guys this evening?
Doing really good, really good. We got a good show. I'm excited. I think everyone's excited. But you know what, guys? We're not done. We got special guest ambassadors. And I want to start, first of all, we stole them, Kyle, from over there at the, the space book that Dan Hadley does.
I-40, all the stuff Dan Hadley does. You know, we've let him do a lot on the network. I think he owes us one.
Yeah, and also, too, he knows a lot about aliens, which I'm a huge fan of. So please welcome Mr. Gary Akers. What's up, Gary?
Hi, everybody. You know, as Troy says, I feel great joy and gratitude to be here.
That's awesome.
He says that now.
I'll tell you right now, Gary, if you're going to quote Troy, you're going to get points with Amy because Amy's a huge fan of Troy. So,
well, okay,
Yes.
Good. I'm already in. I didn't even know that, but
Yeah, that was how I signed off my podcast on a different one I hosted.
okay. No, but
now
I'm
we
thrilled
have
to be
one
here.
more special guest ambassador. This is a dear friend of mine. We go way back. Now, some people always ask me, guys, hey, Kevin, how did you ever get into podcasting? Well, I'll tell you. I was had a good friend of mine that I was working with at the time many years ago, back in 2015-ish or something, maybe even earlier than that. And we started talking about Star Wars and Star Trek. And he had his own podcast. And he's a big Star Wars fan as well as a Star Trek fan. I as well. And Mr. Robert said, hey, I got this bald solo podcast. It's what I do. You want to come on it? And I'm like, yeah. So please welcome Mr. Robert Babs. How are you, sir?
Hello. Hey, I'm honored to be here.
It's good to have you, man. And it's good to be podcasting with you again.
It's been so long since I have done this, and mine was audio only. So I just got to say, when I was backstage watching all this unfold, I'm like, wow.
It's come a long way, buddy. Kyle, what you got?
What you're saying is by six degrees of Kevin Bacon, Robert is actually kind of a founder of the Fandom Podcast Network.
He is. Robert got me into podcasting. I got the podcasting bud because of you, Robert, and I thank you, and I'll always be grateful to you for that. So thank you.
So does that mean I get a free mug?
We'll talk about that.
Amy?
Well, Norm got me into podcasting. So
Norm was one of the original co-founders of this network. Yeah. And what's funny too, Robert, is you and I last podcasted when you watched the first season of Blood of Kings, and I had you on as a guest, and it was Norm that had helped me start that podcast. So there you go.
Yeah, because I was into the Highlander movie.
Yeah.
The first and second movie, and you got me into the show.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
it was
sat
great.
down and watched the whole show and got into that. And I went to the Adrian Paul thing.
And it was great to get your fresh perspective on that. So, but guys, we're here to talk about some Star Trek here. And for those of you that don't know, as of this week in the recording of this first episode of the Q episode, Star Trek: The Next Generation premiered this week, 38 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So before we go any further here, okay, I want to ask, first of all, Gary, let's start with you first here. I want to get your quick Star Trek fandom and how it started, and then I want you to share what you were going to tease. And don't forget, you're on mute too. I got you. There you go.
Oh, I've been a Trek fan since I was in diapers. You know, started with the syndicated original series on local, seeing all the movies and everything, and so loving every bit of the franchise that I could get my hands on. Read every novel I could. In terms of what Kevin was just referring to, my Star Trek cred is that for about 4 years in the late 90s, I was one of the 4 principal writers on this project called Star Trek Universe, where we produced these information cards, about every episode, character, cast, ship, and we couldn't just copy. These were like original kind of essays that we had to write. We couldn't just make up stuff, but we couldn't just copy anything that was in some of the other books. So, I mean, I did characters like, Picard, and I did most of the Deep Space Nine stuff, like Cisco.
And those all 3 whole bunch, so you can put them in a binder, right?
Yeah, they came in a binder. We did about 950 of them, and I did just under 300. Wow. I wrote, but I actually even remembered that I actually did the Encounter at Farpoint cards.
Oh, that's so cool.
And key episodes like Yesterday's Enterprise, and for the ships like the Enterprise D, which I did, those also came with graphics and everything. And you know what? This was pre-DVD, people. So I had to sit and write all my notes by popping VHS tape after VHS tape into my machine and coming up with all this stuff. Like, summarize the Klingon Empire in 500 words. Things like that. This was a joy. It was hard, but it was a great joy. And I felt so privileged to be part of, the official product.
Well, Jim McMahon in the chat says, wow, I actually have several binders of those. That's awesome.
There you go, Jim. And like I said, it was just a very, very special time. And I don't think I've ever been prouder to, spend my time working on something like this.
Well, I think you're a little overqualified to be here. So, but thank you.
Not at all. Not at all.
I want to get Robert on here, brother. I want you to tell me about your Star Wars. Excuse me. We've had that discussion many times. Your Star Trek fandom.
Yes. So I was raised by Star Trek fan parents of the original series and the movies. And my first Star Trek memory is actually that I can remember is going to see the Voyage Home in the theater with my parents. And then the following year, because I believe Voyage Home came out in 86.
Nice.
So 87, TNG comes on TV, and I vividly remember sitting on our brown carpet in front of the tube furniture TV with the pull knobs and the couch back here, and it's, burgundy and brown everything. And I remember watching this, and I remember all the hype around DeForest Kelley being on it. So yeah,
that's very 70s carryover information there. I love that.
It was a ritual for my family to watch TNG with dinner as I grew up. From 7, I mean, because how long was it on TV? How many years?
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So,
all right, well, so let's celebrate Next Generation here. Haley, let's start with you. It's 38 years ago. Does it feel like it?
Yeah. That I can't believe it. That's crazy. But then I do the math and I'm like, oh yeah, I was like 7 years older than Star Trek. So I think it's great. And it's super exciting that it's 38 years. Before we know it, it'll be 40 years, and we'll just all reminisce. It's great. I never watched it growing up, like first, because I was so little, but I do vividly remember watching the rest of it. I didn't watch anything afterwards until like way later. So TNG is just my favorite. So,
Amy, we know how much you love TNG. You and I share this together. You got into a little bit later, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I got into it when it was in its 3rd season, and my mom was just like, "Hey, you'd really like this show. Come watch it with me." And I sat down, and I guess I never got back up because here I am loving Star Trek still.
All right, guys. Well, let's get into the start the show here. So this is Star Trek, the Q Fan Collective. We'll get into that in a second here. But as you can see, we got some episodes coming up. We're going to be talking about 12 episodes of the John de Lancie appearances throughout TNG, DS9, and of course, Voyager. We got a lot to talk about. But I want to give a shout out here to my good friend Joe Caroni here. He is a renowned artist throughout fandom, and most people might know him as a Star Wars artist because he actually does a lot of license work for Lucasfilm. He'll have event specific prints that you can only get there, like Comic-Con. I remember he had several Star Wars celebration ones, but he's a fan of a lot of stuff here. I have it right here. Let me show you guys real quick. I have one right here in the room, hanging up there, the Q one that he did. I saw that at Comic-Con earlier this year. I'm like, dude, I got to buy that. I got reasons. So I just want to give him a shout out. Check him out at joecaroni.com. He's got a lot of other fandoms that he covers as well. So make sure you guys check that out. But let's go ahead and get into the main part of the show here and the history. This has been inspired by this DVD set here, the Star Trek Q Fan Collective. Came out in 2006, I believe. And it has all the episodes that we're going to be talking about, and we know how popular John de Lancie is. But let's, first of all, let's get into a little history of Q. Now, before I start, I want to get everyone's first quick opinion on when someone says Q from Star Trek, what do they think? Amy, I want to start with you.
For me, it is his relationship with Picard and how he just pokes the bear. I love it.
Love it. What about you, Haley?
I automatically go mischievous prankster, because that's just what I think of. I mean, if we go back to the original series and we say there was a Q, even though it wasn't called Q or the Q Collective or whatever we want to call it at that point, mischievous.
All right. What about you, Robert? When someone says Q, what's the first thing you think of? What kind of fan does it bring to you? The snap. Well said. Well, not said, but said. Well said. I like that. Gary, what about you? When someone says Q to you, what do you say?
I think of Mon Capitaine. I love it every single time he says that. It's affectionate, yet it's kind of taking the mick out of Picard a little bit.
Kyle, I know you got something. What do you got to say?
Chaotic fun. Every Q episode is pure chaotic fun. John de Lancie is amazing as Q, but yeah, you know when he pops on screen, you know it's going to get wild.
That's awesome. I love that. This is getting me excited. We've got fun stuff to go.
They need to add that alignment to D&D. Chaotic fun.
Yeah, right. Well, for those of you that might need a little reminder here, I want to first of all give a shout out here. We got Protector Securities hanging out there. So this is Josh. Raiders are killing us. I'm trying to join the video chat. Nice. Josh, thank you for coming in, man. Yeah, he says, I never thought of Q as a villain necessarily. Well, that'll be interesting. We'll discuss that. I like that. So yeah, and Jim McMahon, thank you for joining us as well. If you are watching this, feel free to join the chat and give us your comments there. So we appreciate that. Okay, so a little bit of history here, guys. He's a fictional character as well as name of the race in Star Trek, appearing in Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, Lower Decks, and the Picard series and in related media. The most familiar Q is portrayed by John de Lancie. He's an extra-dimensional being of unknown origin who possesses immeasurable power over time, space, and the laws of physics and reality itself, being capable of altering it to his whim. He loves messing with people for his own practical jokes and personal amusement as well. and he's continually evasive regarding his true motivations. The name Q applies to the names of individuals portrayed. All male and female characters refer to each other as Q. And of course, the race known as the Q continuum and such. Gene Roddenberry chose the letter Q in honor of his friend Janet Quarton. Many Star Trek television episodes and novels have featured Q, often have titles that play with the letter Q, many TV episodes. And of course, with Next Generation, he appeared in 8 episodes, 1 in Deep Space Nine, 3 in Voyager, 1 in Lower Decks, 9 in Picard, and he has an appearance in Strange New Worlds as voice only. But there's also some other fun things that we've had with Q here, guys. The Star Trek board game. Does anybody remember this? 1996 computer game Star Trek Borg was primarily made up of live action segments directed by James L. Conway, who is a legendary Star Trek director. We know that name very well, and featured John de Lancie as Q. Anybody play this at all? I never did. No. Oh, Robert. Yeah, give me a heads up there. What you got? You're on. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a vivid memory of it, but I mean, this was the CD-ROM computer era, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I probably at that time played it for a few days because I was terrible at it. But yeah.
Jim McMahon says I played it once. Very entertaining. Very entertaining.
Yeah.
So there's one other bit of Q thing I thought that I would bring up here, guys, that I think was worth mentioning. So I was going through the history and all the fun. And for those of you that maybe you watch Star Trek Picard, there was a scene where there was a business card and it had a phone number on it. So obviously I had to try to call the number, and I did. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you this right now. Hold on a second here. So on my phone, I have the Q Continuum hotline right there. See that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the number. I'm going to put it on my mic. Try not to laugh. Try not to say anything so we can hear the whole thing. It might be tough. It's only about 20 to 30 seconds, but here we go, okay?
Oh, you have reached the Q Continuum. We are unable to get to the phone right now because we are busy living in a plane of existence your feeble mortal minds cannot possibly comprehend. Furthermore, it's pointless to leave a message because we, of course, already knew that you would call, and we simply do not care. Nice day.
Goodbye.
That last part kills me. So that's the Q hotline. It's still running live, Kyle.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's what's amazing. The fact that it's still running live after all this time is awesome.
That's great.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into the first away mission here. Okay, the first away mission is the episode synopsis log here for episode 228, Union Federation. Of course, we were discussing Encounter at Farpoint, the first Q episode. And if you need a spoiler alert here, I don't know why, but maybe you do. But here's a spoiler alert anyway. So we'll just give a quick one. That's all you get right there. There you go. This is the Admiral's Log episode synopsis for Encounter at Farpoint. Amy, if you could please present that to us, I would appreciate it.
All righty. Well, this episode aired September 28th, 1987, and it currently has an IMDb rating of 6.9. So, in the 24th century, Captain Picard is taking command of the Enterprise E and picks up crew. Enterprise D? I'm like, E? No. All right, and picks up crew, including his first officer, Will Riker, Beverly Crusher, and her son, Wesley. Farpoint is trying to establish themselves as Starfleet-approved port, but something's not quite right. En route, Picard, his crew, were waylaid by an advanced entity, Q, who calls on them to stand trial for the evils of humankind. In a court of his own devising, Q judges that based on its past, humanity is unfit to exist. Picard argues that the human race has outgrown its infancy and should be judged on its current actions. Excuse me. Q relents and agrees to monitor the Enterprise's new crew as it investigates a mysterious force at Farpoint Station. The only way for the crew to prove their accuser wrong is to continue their mission and discover the secret of the mysterious base on a distant planet, seemingly built by a civilization that does not have the technological skill. Furthermore, they have to solve the puzzle in a truly civilized and enlightened manner.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Now, I'm not going to ask you your first reactions yet because we're going to use that for the first mission report here. But Amy, thank you so much for reading that out. A little shout out in the chat here. We got Protective Security saying Q is not wrong. And then, of course, Chris, what's up, buddy? Ghostbusters quick response to you says the trial never ends. That's cool. Thank you guys for checking in. We appreciate you. Let's get into some Star Trek trivia first. Right. Haley, would you like to read the first trivia piece that we have here for Encounter at Farpoint?
Of course. So there was an expansion request. The original script for Encounter at Farpoint was conceived as a standard 1-hour episode by writer DC Fontana. Love. However, Paramount Pictures requested that co-creator Gene Roddenberry expand it into a 2-hour event to launch the new series with a big splashy splash. Roddenberry's addition was that he loved the concept of all-powerful entities in Star Trek, and he took on the rewrite. To fill the extra time, he added the entire subplot involving the godlike entity Q putting humanity on trial.
So the big question here is, which exec do we need to thank for Q? Because Q wasn't going to be part of this episode. What do you think of that, Gary? Hold on, you're on mute.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Well, it just shows that that great things come about in the oddest way. Who knows? He would have been created much later, but it was a genius move to have this kind of wonderful, enigmatic antagonist and get him in there pretty much in the first act. And so this is the definition of like happy accidents.
Robert, you're nodding your head there. I want to get your thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, to add on to what Gary said, if the episode was just Farpoint, fine. It would have been a good episode. But the Q layer gives everybody this is why you should watch this series going forward, because what's the verdict going to be?
Yeah. Good point. Exactly.
Right? So you have that in the back of your mind as you watch Star Trek The Next Generation. What's the verdict?
Yeah. All right, let's get into the next trivia here. And Amy, do you want to read this one? This is a good one here. We're going to have this discussion later, so keep that in mind. But we had to put it in the trivia because of why it happened, because this is a big deal.
Well, on the call sheets, McCoy is referred to simply as Admiral, and no indication is given in any way that this is to be McCoy. This is done to keep his appearance a secret until the episode's premiere on television. DeForest Kelley's cameo as an aged McCoy was a late addition to the script and was devised by Gene Roddenberry. And Gene Roddenberry quote says, "It came about as a result of, I think, a meeting between him and Dee," remembered producer Robert H. Justman. "I think it had been on Gene's mind, and he invited Dee to lunch, and he says, 'How would you feel about it?' Expecting Dee to say, 'No.' And Dee said, 'I'd be honored.' And not only that did he say, 'Oh, yeah, I'd be honored.' But he refused to take any more than SAG's SAG scale. He could have held us up for a lot of money, and he didn't. It was just great. It really got to me the way he did it. It was a beautiful, beautiful scene." So this marks the final television appearance of DeForest Kelley before his death on 11th of June, 1999. discounting his appearance in Trials and Tribulations in Deep Space Nine,
Yeah,
which was the archive footage from Star Trek 1966. And Kelly filmed his scene on Tuesday, 2nd June, the 2nd of June, 1987.
Big deal. We'll definitely talk more about that. Kyle, you want to hit us with our next bit of trivia?
Wait, let me make sure the emotion chip is off for this because I don't want to start laughing halfway through.
Speak up a little bit there.
I said, let me make sure the emotion chip is off here because I don't want to start laughing halfway through this. But apparently, at some point during this mission, Geordi LaForge told Data a joke, which the humorless android did not get until years later when he activated his emotion chip during the events of Star Trek Generations. Data, ha ha ha, I get it, ha ha ha, I get it. LaForge, what, you get what? When you said to Commander Riker the clown can stay, ha ha ha, but the Ferengi in the gorilla suit has to go, ha ha ha. What are you talking about? During the Farpoint mission, we were on the bridge and you told the joke. That was the punchline, ha ha ha. Farpoint, Data, that was 7 years ago. I know, I just got it. Ha ha ha, very funny, ha ha ha.
Jim McMahon says, I love that McCoy's appearance became the first in what would be a kind of tradition with an actor from the previous series appearing in the new series. Yeah, good point, Jim. Appreciate that. Very cool. I'll go ahead and get the last bit of trivia here. All right. At Farpoint, Dr. Crusher decides to purchase a bolt of fabric and asks the Bendy to charge it to her account on the Enterprise, making this one of a few very, very rare references to any sort of money being used by the Federation until they were forced to on Deep Space Nine. Can anyone think of anything else through TNG when it came to like Federation money? I guess. Yeah, weird.
But it doesn't necessarily say that it's money. It just says charge to her account, right? So we have this economy that works on trade and bartering. So
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and because this world is trying to become, so they don't have maybe, that elevated.
Is there a comment somewhere in some Star Trek movie or show about that where the character says we don't use money in this century anymore? I'm remembering that.
Oh yeah,
It's been
Troy
referenced
does.
quite a bit. Yeah. It
Yeah.
has.
Troy does when she's talking to in Time Zero. When when she's taking the guy who wrote. Come on, guys, help me.
Time Traveler.
Zero.
Yeah.
In-
The Time Traveler episode, right?
Mark Twain.
No, Mark Twain. When
Mark Twain,
she's
yeah, there
walking
you go.
him through the corridor.
All right.
It's been referenced in other ones too, but yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to get us off track.
Haley, you want to read the fifth and final bit of this is about John de Lancie himself.
Sure. All scenes involving Q were filmed during the last 2 weeks of the 4-week production schedule, since John de Lancie was involved in a theatrical play and could only be available from mid-June onwards. Gene Roddenberry and Robert H. Justman were both keen on having de Lancie play the part and were willing to adjust the schedule in order to accommodate the actor. While filming Star Trek The Next Generation's Encounter at Farpoint, John de Lancie was a busy actor with a background in theater, who also worked with LA Theater Works and had appeared in the American Shakespeare Festival. He was already a working actor before his role as Q. In more details, John de Lancie has a significant theater background, including work with, we already said that, blah, 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 radio series where the plays The Thing originated, apparently at the LA Theater Works. That's cool.
I'm showing here on YouTube. I found this on eBay. Someone actually had a playbill of the plays The Thing. This was done during, I believe, the 92 season, or I think it says up there. It's 91. So this wasn't the play he was working on at the time, but he always went back to the theater, which was great. And you can tell that's where he kind of sharpens his skill. And he obviously was very popular during this. So yeah, the play is The Thing. I don't know if it's still on eBay, but that's where I found it. Amy.
If you go on the Star Trek cruise, he always does an evening production of some play that he writes and
Oh, that's
shows.
cool.
So he loves the theater. You see that a lot.
Wait, there's a Star Trek cruise?
Yeah. Yes. Yes,
I've been
there
on
is.
4 of them.
I've seen the pictures and I'm jealous. I want to go. It looks like fun. Protector Security said yes, the Ferengi ruined everything. That's pretty funny. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the show here. We call that the next away mission here. Let's get into that. All right, Union Federation episode 228, discussing Star Trek The Next Generation Encounter at Farpoint. All Star Trek Q episodes in this series that we're doing here. The Fan Collective, which spans between 1987 and 2001. And the first mission report here that we're going to ask you guys is your overall thoughts of returning to this episode of Encounter at Farpoint, Star Trek The Next Generation. More specifically, we'll touch on the Q parts of the plot in the next mission report. But I want to ask you, just returning to this, what was this like, your reactions again? And was there any subplots that stood out to you? Gary, you're one of our special guests here. I'm going to start with you.
Well, overall, I think that this episode successfully accomplished its main mission of proving that Star Trek could survive the absence of Kirk and Spock. That was its, I think, main accomplishment. I think the ensemble's very well cast, as are all the classic Trek ensembles. For me, though, when I was rewatching it, I felt that, because it'd been a while since I'd revisited this episode, but for me, it was hard for me just to take this episode in isolation now without overlaying my knowledge of how these characters would develop through the series, and just kind of focusing on how they are in this episode. It's like, oh, Troy's kind of odd, but that's okay. She'll be better later, that kind of thing. And just, without bringing this whole holistic thing. But gotcha. I loved it. And, I thought that the moral of the story is don't trust apples that appear out of thin air.
Well said. All right, Robert, I'm going to go to you next, our other special guest ambassador here. Your thoughts of returning to this episode, and was there any subplots that stood out for you?
Yeah, so when I watch, TV movies from the 80s, 90s, stuff like that, I very much watch it still with the child in me that watched it at the time. So there was a 7-year-old kid inside enjoying it and remembering things like, I was, as a kid, when Q was going through the various timeline of human wars, and he got to this futuristic soldier with this crazy outfit on and the drugs, the sniff thing. I was really into anything time travel at the time as a kid, because Back to the Future, and this was referencing something that I wanted to know more about. Like, hey, what happened during that era of pre-Star Trek history? This war that happened. So, and I think they touched on it a little bit in First Contact, but that was a standout for me, was when Q was going through those kind of things.
Gotcha. Very cool. Good point. Haley, what about you? What stood out to you returning to this? Was there any subplots that jumped out at you too?
Yeah, it's fun to go back to these early episodes. I'm definitely a proponent of season 1 and 2 and 3 are not as bad as most people will say. I think there are some really good episodes in these first few seasons, and this one is a really good episode, I think, as far as a first episode of a new Star Trek series where we're trying to kind of have similar characters to Spock and Kirk and Bones, but not Spock, Kirk, and Bones. And so I really appreciate that, especially now that I've watched the original series, and I appreciate that for what it is. I think, I like these interactions that we're getting, these characters just meeting each other, they don't know each other. They don't necessarily trust each other in a sense of like family trust yet. And I really like that, because sometimes I think we get shows where the characters automatically, they all get along and it seems like they've had history, and they, but they don't, because they're just meeting each other. And so I really like that this episode does that, where, yes, Riker and Troy have a history, and Captain Picard and Beverly Crusher have a history, but we really don't have a history with any of these characters yet. And so I really love that it's just kind of fresh and new for everyone.
Nice.
I will say Troy's hair, so bad. So bad. I remember when I was younger thinking like the weird bead thing that she has in her hair was really not a great look, but this honestly was bad.
Well, Amy, I'm going to go to you next. I was going to remind you about what we learned about Riker and Troy, but I wasn't going to mention the hair. But Haley did. Your thoughts on your thoughts on returning to this episode, and what stood out to you?
Oh, Haley, do you not remember the perm era? I mean,
yes, I know.
Yes,
So
perms
bad.
were all the rage. In the
Jim
early
McMahon said,
80s.
by the way, you mean the space cheerleader hair?
Yes, exactly, Jim. So, I absolutely love that Troy and Riker have the history because it's developed. And I love the fact that Marina and Jonathan both agreed that they were going to make this relationship be important.
Yeah.
Because the writers, it was just going to be, they have history and move along. But their chemistry, like they forced that. But so I do love that. But I love the thinking outside of the box of the station and our space jellyfish. I just thought that was so creative. Really, just who would have thought that it's an alien being captured? So I really give credit to the writers for that.
Yeah, it's a good point, Amy, because that kind of laid the foundation of other non-speaking but sentient, important aliens that they would come across. The one that gave birth, and all that kind of stuff, or the micro ones. So that's a good point. So Kyle, wait, I want to go to you next here, Kyle, because I want you to talk about it, because you and I, it was one of the things we bonded on was Star Trek, and what was it like returning to this for you?
It was interesting because it's been probably a couple of years since I've watched this, and I developed my own subplot in this, watching this I'm kind of trying to take it from a different perspective for this podcast. What I find most interesting, and I think it's a subplot it's one I kind of made up in my head, but it's watching this crew, and in this first episode in this storyline, there's an underlying tension they're all playing on because they're so uncertain about each other. Yes, a couple of them knew each other, but they were all kind of learning each other still, both in real life as probably actors, but with these characters. And you can see there's times where they're a little bit shorter with each other, or you can tell they're watching their words a little bit. One of the ones I always go to is when we see Wesley and Beverly Crusher, and Riker comes up and how he's talking about him, and Crusher's really kind of almost short with him about, you're just trying to impress the new captain and all these things. And just how you didn't have that closeness in their relationships that we came to love so much in later seasons. And it was really interesting to go back and see that happening in this first episode.
That's a good point. Yeah. I did notice that they're like, especially when Riker is talking to, Picard, and Picard's asking about his duties and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was interesting to see how comfortable they get later on, and how, tight they are and stuff. So,
and just even how Picard is a lot more ordering of Riker early on.
Yeah.
Even though he's kind of testing, he's kind of testing him, but still he's a little bit more authoritarian with Riker than he would be as we go later.
Yeah, definitely. So just my quick thoughts here. There was things that I was noticing, like I was trying to remember, like what scene did they use from Riker in the final episode of TNG where they have to like he can't be there because he's not supposed to be there yet, but they use like archive footage. I was trying to remember if that came from this episode. I don't know if you guys remember what I'm talking about. But also too, when Riker first comes on the episode, and one of the things I noticed, and I don't know if it's ever been referenced before, guys, is the ensign that says, yeah, if you need to find out where you're going, you can hit this button, you can follow these lights down the corridor. And I didn't remember that being used before. And so that was throwing me off. The thing that I most noticed, though, is that when he does start following lights, the ensign turns around, starts checking out his ass.
Oh, yeah.
That was funny. So that was just one of the things I know. So, by the way, Gary, you got a shout out in the private chat. Just show off your shirt there. It's pretty badass.
Oh,
I love it.
So,
that
it's
Star
my-
Trek
it's my- it's my-
TOS retro going thing on there. I
yeah,
like
it's
that.
my lounge. It's my Star Trek lounge shirt.
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well said.
It's very turn
All
of the century. It's great.
Have any of you ever ridden Spaceship Earth at Epcot? You know the cartoon at the end you do? They look like that on his shirt. Yeah.
I need to go on that. That sounds like fun. Guys, let's get into the next topic here. Let me bring this to the stage here. Okay, so this is where we talk about Q. Your thoughts on the main Q storyline throughout this episode and its impact on the Star Trek timeline. And this is a big one, guys. Specifically, Q puts mankind on trial. Let's go ahead and go. Let's go to you, Robert. This is the first time we see Q. This is a big deal.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you're 7 years old, this is kind of sort of flying over your head a little bit. But rewatching it at 45, it's amazing dialogue. It's just a pleasure to watch John de Lancie and Patrick Stewart fence with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, what's going on in those scenes is just, it's spectacular. So, and the writing also in the courtroom specifically, that's one of my favorite parts of the episode is all of the dialogue in the courtroom.
Yeah, good call. Gary, what about you? Your thoughts on the main Q storyline? What this had some ramifications.
Yeah, I actually think that the success of this episode is largely down to Q. I mean, he's capricious, he's all powerful, and his unpredictability is the key to his character. He raises the stakes not only for this episode but for the series, and it shows right away that the series is going to tackle like larger issues. Like, is mankind's nature to be savage, or can we rise beyond that? He knows exactly how to manipulate Picard. I think he acts in a way to provoke a defensive response in Picard, and Picard's almost like a little too boastful to Q before it seemed to me he's even taken the time to kind of take the measure of Q, which is odd considering how Picard would develop primarily as a thoughtful diplomat, as the series went on. But here, he's defensive. He immediately falls into the trap of the prosecutor judge thing. But I do love at the end of the climax when Q rematerializes and he starts doing the Mon Capitan and still being provocative. But I ran it back a couple of times. It's clear that if you watch Q standing behind Picard at the end, that he's almost proud of Picard when he figures things out. And it becomes clear like he wants them to solve this mystery, that he's not just an antagonist working against the crew. And that kind of like hard to figure out element of what's Q going to do now, I think is key to everything.
That's a good point. I like that. Yeah, like he's human, but he's getting it. So yeah, Kyle. Can't hear you, Kyle.
My fault. Mute. I pulled the Lacey. With this episode and Q and Picard, if you don't have Patrick Stewart and John de Lancie in these roles, and if it's other actors who just don't have that acting gravitas, there's a chance this show never gets off the ground like it did. Because I think the chemistry between them and what they set up in this episode is so key to pulling the viewers in and going, okay, Q is obviously going to be a character we're going to see more of. and it's establishing growth in Picard throughout this episode because of how he kind of adapts and changes, and we start seeing that. But it's also in seeing little changes in Q as he's observed Picard and see how Picard acts. If you had to have somebody over the top for Q, and getting John de Lancie is perfect, but Patrick Stewart is the perfect actor to play off of Picard, off of Q and off of John de Lancie. And that works. And if that doesn't work, I don't know if we get 7 seasons of The Next Generation.
I bet they talked about theater a lot too, and they bonded over that. I'm sure there was a lot of conversations about that. Protector Security says 4 lights. They are 4 lights. I love that. Great. Amy, I want to go to you here. Your thoughts on the main Q storyline? This kind of hangs around for a while.
It absolutely does. And I completely agree with what everyone has said. And yeah, their chemistry is just gold. And it continues all the way, even through Picard. So I love that we still he's menacing and putting him on trial, but we see that there is compassion where it's like, oh, you did surprise me. So let's just continue this a little bit longer. So you know that Q really does care. These aren't just pets. He really does care about us. Them.
That brings up a thought I'm going to bring up in a second, but I don't want to get Haley to chime in on this main Q storyline because he's put mankind on trial, and they hear about it a lot in the future.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing that's interesting for me and going back and watching this now is that it's fascinating. So Q picks this courtroom scene from like 2070, right? And we all know in Star Trek lore that we have a third world war, and before we can make all these advancements. And it's so fascinating to kind of look at and say, okay, so we've had this war and we've regressed, right? So like everybody's talking, but it's gibberish. It's not actual English, and I don't know how intentional that was in the writer's room, but I'd love to know, like, was that an intentional thing to kind of show everybody regress a little bit? And I think that's so fascinating that Q is judging us based off of, how long have they watched us? And if so, they've obviously seen us probably Third World War. They've seen us fighting and these factions that whatever happens post Third World War that causes us to regress almost to what we would think of as like, Renaissance period time frame almost. And so it's that aspect is really interesting that he's judging us based off of that. But we're well past 2070 at this point. And so it makes you wonder, did they stop watching us? Or did they just not care that, we've gone past this time frame that they're pulling and saying that we're going to be judged based off of? And so that, I think, concept is really quite interesting. I don't know if anybody else has thought about that, but
that's what I love about you. Hey, make me think hard. It's good. Like that.
I know.
Through all the comments that you guys were saying, I'm trying to remember, and I can't remember, but we've had some fantastic moments between Q and Picard. And do they ever actually share a hug? I can't remember if they do or not. Because in my head canon, they do somewhere. I don't know.
They share a bed.
Yeah,
this is true.
He gives him flowers.
That's true. That's good stuff. All right, let's get into the next mission report here, guys. This will be a fun one here. That is, what is the best or most memorable Q moment from this episode that stands out to you? Gary, I'm going to go to you next. What say you?
I actually think that I already kind of alluded to it before. During one of the final scenes, as he's standing behind Picard, just if you watch his expression, it's like you can see him, kind of thinking he's about to get it. He's about to get it. And then when Picard does, you see this little kind of almost smile of satisfaction that Q's kind of happy that Picard rose to, expectations. And I just really like that moment because nobody's looking at him. Nobody sees it except us as the audience watching him. And I like de Lancie's choice of how he played that moment.
Good call. Robert, what about you? What's your favorite Q moment of this episode? What stands out?
Well, there's a line that stands out because I think of it as foreshadowing for a conversation that Picard and Q are going to have that launches them into the Delta Quadrant. So he says, you've come too far. You need to turn around. I think that's one of the first commands he gives Picard. He gives him an ultimatum. He's like, just turn around and go, because if you don't, I'm going to make it a problem for you. But later on in the series, there's a conversation that they have in 10 Forward. And he says something like, you have no idea what you are traveling into. You have no idea the arrogance for you to be on this mission of exploration and not understand that there's things out there that have no moral compass. And we all know who the Borg are. So
damn it, Robert, you're keeping us on our toes here, on the edge of our seat. I love it.
Anyway, that to me is kind of a little taste of that conversation before it happens.
All right. Haley, what about you? What Q moment jumps out to you?
It will forever be when he shows up and he comes out of the pitch black and that platform that like moves and stuff. It terrified me when I was little and seeing that for like the first time. And that forever will be like my favorite moment because he doesn't say anything at first and he just comes out of the black and it's terrifying and brilliant all at once.
And his most iconic Q look too, if you think about it, outside of his captain's uniform that he'll put on just to mock, Picard, I guess, in so many ways. So yeah. Amy, tell me what you got. What's your favorite moment in this episode?
What always impresses me with Q, and I loved it when I saw it, is the amazing graphic of him going to a light and, when he changes costumes, it says, I think it's just brilliant. I love the sound effects. I love the look and how crisp and clean it all looks. And that is essentially Q.
Good call. All right, Kyle, what about you? What's your what stands out for you as a Q moment in this episode?
It's that first moment on the bridge of the Enterprise, because the way de Lancie performs it, you don't know what the hell you're dealing with. You've got this guy who's changing his looks at a flash. He's freezing an ensign. He's talking, he's being threatening, but he's also in a little bit of his own way being silly and making fun of everybody too. And you're not quite sure, this is a very legitimate threat, but you're not quite sure what he's up to completely yet. And I think even though we have the trial with humanity, but the way he is throughout the episode, it establishes this. It's like the one thing for sure about Q is nothing's for sure. And I think that was so key in establishing that character.
I was thinking, and I have a picture of the screenshot up here. When he first appears in that outfit, that kind of teases us to a future episode where, he wants to mess with Picard and his love life a little bit.
Best. Such good episode.
Yeah. Can't wait to get to that one. That I just love his first appearance and how he does it. But, I've never really thought about how ominous that it is until you just brought it up now, Robert, about what he says, especially what we see in upcoming Trek episodes. So
there's a too far.
No, yeah. G.I. Joe RPG Story says, hello there. Good to see you. Appreciate that, guys. All right. So we have one more mission report. Well, sort of. It's a general discussion here. And this is where if there's something else you guys want to bring up, but I did want to bring this up to the discussion here because this was kind of important.
Best line in the show, in the episode, right there.
let me ask you about this then. Any other comments or topics or observation? But I want to talk about Dr. McCoy's appearance and scene with Data here. This was a big deal. Robert, what's your comment on this?
Best line in the episode. Treat her like a lady and she'll always take you home.
There you go.
Just my opinion.
Yeah. What about you, Amy?
I absolutely loved seeing this. Always pay homage to TOS and the handoff and the connective tissue that it brings. And we get, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy all on TNG in form of movie and episode. And Scotty, yes, of course. But I mean, the big three. So this is very... yeah, amazing.
What about you, Gary? Your thoughts on this scene? Kind of a big bridge here.
Yeah, well, exactly. I was going to say I was paying particular attention to the music. I think the music during this scene is lovely because it's not really, it's almost kind of like elegiac in a way. It's music that's kind of denoting that this is an official passing of the baton. Like one era is ending, and now it's time for this other one to start. And the music, go back and listen to the music during this scene. The music really kind of punctuates that.
I don't know if I've really paid attention to it. I will. That's a good idea. Kyle.
In this day and age, no way this has the impact it did at the moment, because there's no way this doesn't get put out on social media somehow. Somebody leaks this. And
that's a good boy, yeah.
I think it's so important because you have to have that handoff, but to have it be DeForest Kelly and Bones maybe is the perfect character to do that handoff with, because he's the most one we connect with the most. And I think from the original series, he's the most, hey, he's like us, Bones is always just, he's Bones. And I think having him be the one to connect us with the line Robert talks about and just how we feel about Bones, it was the perfect character to connect, because I think if you have like a Kirk or Spock in that moment, it just feels so much different, and it doesn't feel as relaxed, and it doesn't feel as fun. And I think having Bones do that really gets you kind of settled in a comfort level with the next generation.
That's cool. I like that. It's a good comment. Now, I want to give a shout out to my friend Josh. He's Protector Security there. He just sent me a private message here, and he gave me permission to play it. It's actually his cameo that he got from John de Lancie. And I just want to show you a picture. There it is right there. And I'm going to play it here. I'm going cold in this. I don't know what's going to say. So, Josh, hopefully it's cool. So here we go.
Josh, Q here. I'm delighted that you think that I'm one of the best in Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and Next Generation. You need to make sure you go and tell them that the next time you see them. Until then, Happy New Year.
That's pretty cool, Josh. I love that. There you go. Little Q appearance there. I like that. So, all right. Thank you very much, Josh. Appreciate that. Guys, well, actually, I want to answer that real quick. So Dr. McCoy's appearance is a big deal for me because I remember watching the original series. Mom had it on all the time, and I didn't really get into it until later. I remember going to the drive-in to see the original film, and I fell asleep. But it was.
Did you watch the animated series on TV when you were a kid?
No, I didn't catch that till years later. But it was what brought me into Star Trek really was Wrath of Khan, and then I would go back and rewatch the the TOS episodes. And McCoy was my favorite. I loved him. He was the country doctor. I remember driving through, North Carolina. There's signs from where he's from up there. And maybe it was North Georgia. I think it was North Georgia. Sorry. And it was great to just kind of see that recognition. And he was always one I wanted to meet. And I was really sad when he passed away in 99. I didn't get a chance to meet him. But I've met all the other TOS original actors, and I just thought this was a big deal, and it was done really well. It was kind of quick, and of all people for him to have a conversation with Data, I just thought was perfect. So I had to give my thoughts on that.
I would give anything for like an hour-long episode of the shuttle ride that between Data and McCoy, as he took McCoy back, just to see what they talked about for an hour. I'd love that.
Before he does say to Data that like Data's only a little more trustworthy than a Vulcan.
Yeah, I know, right? Now, before I move on to the cast part of the discussion, was there anything else of this episode that stood out for you guys, part of the general discussion? Any other notes? Because you guys have been killing it. I just want to say. Oh, yes, Haley, what you got?
I'm going to posit that Q is the Loki of the Star Trek universe.
Nice. I like that. You got a thumbs up from Amy right there. She's clapping too.
So what you're saying is, if we needed to ever go to a different Q, we cast Tom Hiddleston.
There you go. Gary, you had something. What you got, buddy?
Yeah, I just have a couple of what struck me as kind of like wait what moments as I was rewatching last night. I love the fact that when Wes comes onto the bridge, everybody there literally stops to watch him like he's the president of the Federation taking a tour. I thought, well, what's going on with that? But most importantly, I had to stop, and I think I said, wait, what out loud? When Picard says, you're entitled to know, maximum acceleration means we'll be pushing our engines well beyond safety limits. I'm going, wait a minute. I would have thought maximum would be the maximum safe limits, not like where they've designed it where maximum is going way beyond what's safe. It's like, why would you even have that on a ship?
You brought something up that I was just trying to remember, Gary. Help me with my memory here when it comes through the TNG series, not counting the movie because we know that we saw it happen, but when the Enterprise separates the saucer section, we get that showcased here heavily. I remember the 2-part Borg episode they do it where they have to break apart, and I think that's the one, if I remember, guys, where Beverly takes command or something. Was there another episode where they
Generations, the movie?
Besides the movie, was there another?
No,
not in the series. I don't.
Kyle,
two things. One, great call on the separation, because I remember seeing that for the first time. We're like, oh, why haven't they done that before? Because that's always something. The way the ships are designed, it always makes sense that would be something they could do. But Haley might be able to answer this question for me. The first time that we have that brief scene with LaForge and Crusher in the first episode, where she's doing an examination of LaForge, talking about how maybe she could cure his eyesight and stuff like that. And there's a brief thing where LaForge mentions he's always in pain because of that. And I don't ever remember if they actually ever followed up on that in the series.
That's a good call out, Kyle, yeah.
Too, man.
And thank you for bringing it up, because actually I was going to talk about that, because we all know I love Geordi. So yeah, no, we don't get anything else about him talking about it being painful for him. And I love that. I think that's one of the great character moments for Geordi, where she says, well, I could prescribe you painkillers, and he's like, yeah, but that'll inhibit my abilities and inhibit what I can see. And then she's like, well, we could do exploratory surgery, and he says no to both. And so he just lives with this, pain that he experiences, which is understandable. I think people who are born blind, and people who go blind, they do experience some kind of pain. It's kind of the same thing as like phantom limb syndrome that people have. So I love that moment where he's just like, no, I will just continue on. And love it.
Haley, what scene jumped into my mind last night as I was watching that scene, and I don't know why this leaped into my mind, the scene of him watching the sunset in Insurrection.
Yeah,
that totally leaped into my mind as during that scene.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to bring up too is, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of physical media, and I remember going to Best Buy to get these bad boys right here, these original DVD collections of the TNG. And remember, these were like $120, $125 of how expensive they were, but I bought them. And sometimes they came with a little additional disc and everything. And I actually watched this one, and I remember watching this all the time before we had, in case it wasn't being rerun anywhere. But then, of course, the best one is the Blu-ray release of all the 7 seasons. The showing of this, the presentation of this restored Blu-ray of this particular episode is absolutely gorgeous and worth putting on your big screen TV in 4K. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I highly, highly recommend getting it if you haven't already. So, well, guys, we got one more mission report here, because we got to talk a little about who your favorite cast or guest star was. This is episode 228, Union Federation, discussing Star Trek Next Generation Encounter at Farpoint, the Star Trek Q episodes from the fan collection. Let's give a shout out to our favorite Star Trek MVP. Guys, I'm going to go first just because I wanted to make sure that I got this in. This is not a main cast member. This is not Q. This is someone that's kind of says some words, and if you are a certain fan of a certain something, you will know who I'm talking about here, guys. I'm a big fan of this character actor, and I wanted to give him some love. And you may have recognized him from many, many movies playing bad guys. And this is the Mandarin Bailiff here. Let me go ahead and go to his picture here. This is Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa. I'm a big fan of this guy. If you, most people know him as, of course, from the movie Mortal Kombat. I'm sorry, but that music is going in through my brain right now.
Finish
Kyle.
him. Finish him.
But I'm a personal fan of him in a particular movie here because he plays such a good bad guy. And I just want to shout out the movie. It's Showdown in Little Tokyo with the late Brandon Lee and, of course, Dolph Lundgren. And when I was in Australia this summer, I found a movie that I'm looking forward to watching called American Dragons with him and Michael Biehn from Aliens. I got to check that out there.
Was he in The Perfect Weapon? With Jeff
Yes, Jeff Speakman. I believe you're right.
Love that. I've got, love
If
it.
you haven't watched The Man in the High Castle, he is in that.
Oh, he
is. Yes,
Oh,
he
wow.
is. He plays the trade minister. It's, so good. Leave it at that. Oh, it's brilliant.
G.I. Joe RPG Story says, Shang Tsung, yes. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of him, and I thought he was good. He just got this look, too, and apparently he's a very nice guy. He's an Army brat. I went down the rabbit hole of it, but I want to give a shout-out. But I want to go to you guys. Who stood out with you? You could say Q if you want, John de Lancie, or someone else did. Gary, I'm going to start with you first.
Riker.
Yes.
He's a take charge officer, sticks to his principles with Picard. He's friendly, casual when appropriate. I think that whole thing that he does with Geordi about making him give the report formally I think he's just pulling his leg, but Geordi kind of falls into it. I think he gets the best lines. Q admires him more. Sadly, we don't get the Riker maneuver yet, which is disappointing to me. But yeah, overall. Oh, and he's tech savvy because he impresses everybody with doing the manual docking. Yeah.
Good call. I like that. Yeah. He impresses everyone, including that young ensign that shows directions. So.
Well, that follow-up scene's on the cutting room floor, I think.
Yeah, I know, right? Robert, what cast member or guest star stood out for you in this one?
This is going to be so dumb. So when I was watching the episode today, when Grappler Thorn comes on, and I heard his voice, I think that's his name, Grappler Thorn. I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I recognize
Zorn.
voice. He had to have been the voice of cartoons back in the 80s and 90s. I remember, I was like, he sounds like he voiced on G.I. Joe.
Michael Bell.
Michael Bell was voice actor everywhere.
So he was
the movie, Prowl, Scrappers. Yep.
As the episode went on, every time he was in a scene, I kept thinking of running through cartoons in my head. And I was like, he sounds just like that guy.
That's a good call.
He was a major voice actor on 80s cartoons.
So that's mine. It's really dumb, but that's mine.
That's cool. I like that. All right. Kyle, let's go to you. Who stood out for you in this?
Well, I think we can all say probably de Lancie might be the full episode MVP if we were going to be straight honest. But actually, I agree with Gary. I think it's Riker, but maybe not for the same reasons as Gary, because Jonathan Frakes had to carry what I think they tried to make him our point of view character, our relatable character in this episode. We were kind of experiencing everything for the first time and a little bit through Riker's eyes. And he goes all over the place, from his kind of nervousness with Picard, yet standing up to him, his wanting to understand the mystery of Data, how he kind of pulls Geordi's leg, trying to just be a little bit of everything, because you can see how ambitious he is, but he's smart, he's clever, he's got away with the ladies. we see it all from Riker right out of the gate. And it's funny because you wouldn't have thought Riker would not necessarily be your point of view character here because he's the first officer, but in a way it works really well. And it's a big credit to Jonathan Frakes for kind of carrying that weight of that first episode, of being that kind of point of view character for us as we're learning everything about the Enterprise and this new version of Star Trek.
Haley, what about you? Who stood out for you in the cast?
Yeah. Well, I was just pointing to me because Protector Security asked if anyone watched John de Lancie on Stargate, and I was like, oh, I did.
Yeah. Remind me really quick what character he played on Stargate?
It's been a hot minute. So
Okay.
Protector Security, you got to answer that question.
Okay. Josh, let us know.
As for me, I'm going with Worf. Surprisingly, I know, shocker. I really like that, we see him, he's in red, so he's command track right now, which is really interesting because you'd expect it, but you also wouldn't expect it. And so I really like that. I like when, he, towards the end of the episode, and Q shows up on the screen and he jumps up, that instinct, that natural reaction that you would expect Klingons to have. And he, grabs his phaser, and, Picard's like, are you going to shoot a hole through our view screen? What good is that going to do? And he's like, I'm sorry, I will do better next time. And I really like that, because that's just showing like, hey, I'm making a mistake. I apologize. I own it, and I will do better next time. It's great. Gotcha. And he's still wearing the sash already. It's just,
Yeah. Oh.
Except for the hair. The hair's not great, but that's okay. It gets better.
Amy, who stood out for you?
Kevin, I gotta mix it up here.
I'm gonna guess. Troy?
No, I love Troy. And I'm not doing my favorite because there's something that Beverly, and I know it's totally writer thing, and it goes to her conversation with Geordi. It does not make sense for a competent doctor to be, even if it's the first time, she's going to read his chart. It's going to say previous doctors have asked him and if he wanted his eyes fixed, and he says no. It's going to say that he has probably complained about the pain, but there's nothing that can be done. So the whole conversation, I just am always questioning, Dr. Crusher, did you not do your homework?
So we call that the person that didn't do their job right, and that's what.
Yes.
Haley, what you got?
Just to comment on that, to be fair, there are doctors that don't do their homework.
Well, not in the 24th century with our ideal. Yes.
Yeah, you would hope, and you would think that a doctor, and I think, again, I think this speaks to like the progress that they all make, right? All these characters make more progress. A new doctor, we don't know how long she's, but yes, a doctor should read a chart, but come on now, we've all experienced that.
Well, you spawned a question. So the scene with Crusher and Geordi, was that before or after the scene with Picard when Picard says, I'll just give you a transfer because obviously this is going to be a problem? Which scene was first?
So she was with Geordi first.
Yeah, Geordi was first.
If you had the scene with Picard first, you could say she was a little frazzled from the conversation with the captain, because even though her composure was perfect, inside, you have the captain coming and saying, I'm going to transfer you.
That's what I love about having all your brains here, because I never even considered that.
I got that wrong.
Watching these over and over and over again. Kyle.
Can I just say that, honestly, in this episode, Picard comes off as a little bit of an a-hole.
He's definitely peak arrogant Picard in this episode.
Yeah.
Well,
true.
and Amy, to your point, Picard should have known that Beverly requested that posting. Right. That would be a part of a record that she specifically requested it, but that's news to him. So, okay.
There you go.
Yeah. And the way he tells Riker to make sure that his appearance is good. It's just very.
Haley.
I was just going to say, he plays Frank Simmons in Stargate.
John de
He's
Lancie
part of
does.
Stargate Command. He's kind of like not necessarily a bad guy, but you definitely don't like him.
Are you saying like a Badmiral?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's trying to take down the Stargate Command and like kind of help take over it.
After I
So-
finish my
come on.
Farscape rewatch, I'm going to go back into.
Everybody tried to take down Stargate Command. Come on now.
I know.
All right,
I will say,
guys.
the other
Oh, go
thing,
ahead.
if you haven't watched it because you don't have young kids, John de Lancie does the voice of a wonderful character in My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, who is also very much like Loki.
Okay, so hold on a second. You just totally unburied a memory for me when my daughter Camille was getting into My Little Ponies, and of course I had to get her My Little Ponies, get her the My Little Pony Castle, whatever it was, but then watch the shows, and I'm listening to the voices going, "Holy crap, that's Q!"
Yep.
Well said. All right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap things up. This is the Union Federation podcast. We got a little bit more to do here. All right, this is the Star Trek Q fan collective podcast here on Union Federation. We're covering all the Star Trek Q episodes from 87 to 2001, and of course, span through TNG, DS9, and Voyager. Let's go ahead and get our final thoughts here. Gary, let's start with you, sir. Your final thoughts on returning to this episode and the world of Q.
This episode sets the stage very well for the series with a great ensemble. Q is a fantastic antagonist. Overall, it's still kind of a work in development, but shows enormous promise. And I do want to say that I love watching the old promos, because when talking about the series, I can't just say Star Trek: The Next Generation. I have to say Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's how I think of it.
Well said. Robert, what about you? Final thoughts on returning to this first episode of TNG?
I'll just leave it at this. There's a scene, it's my second favorite line exchange in the episode, and I don't exactly remember the exact line after, but Riker says, Picard's going to the turbo lift, and he says, "To the bitter end, sir." And he says something like, "I see nothing so bitter about that." It's very Shakespearean, the exchange. And there's kind of a knowing glance between the two of them, like they're building rapport. So that to me is a really great moment.
Haley.
Yeah, going back and watching this, if you jumped in later on and you've gotten these characters as they've gotten to know each other, going back and watching these first episodes, it can be a little rough, but much like anything else, it's well worth the journey.
Gotcha. Yeah, love it. Amy, final thoughts.
This just really is the beginning of such an amazing character, and the arc that has continued to go on is because of John de Lancie and his brilliance, that he has created this character that is so in our hearts and so memorable. And just, you don't think of Star Trek without thinking of Q because of all of the series he showed up in. And so really credit to John de Lancie.
Kyle.
When you think of the Q character, this is not the kind of character you would put necessarily in the premiere episode of a show. This is the kind of character that maybe after you get a little bit of feel for your main crew, you throw this at them to put them in a little bit of chaos. I think they took a very big chance leading off with Q in the first episode, and it paid off. And it paid off because of John de Lancie. And I think John de Lancie has taken Q and made him one of the most iconic science fiction characters, not just Star Trek character, science fiction characters. And to revisit this and look at it in a different light from when you first watch TNG, if you were around when it premiered or your first time watching it, and knowing now the history of Q and putting that with this episode to see how the character has evolved, what the character has did for this show and actually for other Star Trek shows, and what a great ambassador John de Lancie has been for Star Trek. I think you look at this episode in an entirely different light for its historical significance. And I think the fact that we're recording this on the anniversary week is very significant as well. And this is going to be a very fun ride as we continue looking at how Q changed Star Trek.
Well, it's funny you say that because it reminded me of something I forgot to include at the top of the show, and I want to go over it briefly because I think it's kind of important. John de Lancie has always been a fan favorite, and I know how important the fans are to him. And I've had a chance to speak to him and get his autograph. By the way, one of the best autographs on, him. I think it was him and Geordie LaForge. That actor. Their autographs are fantastic.
LeVar's?
LeVar.
Yes.
Oh, LeVar's better be.
Yeah,
This is amazing.
Seriously, really good. But I did want to mention real quick here, guys, some reception and accolades regarding Q. So in 2009, Q was ranked as the 9th best character of all of Star Trek by IGN. 2016, Time magazine rated Q as the number 10th best villain of the Star Trek franchise. 2017, Space.com rated Q as one of the, quote, 15 of the most bizarre alien species of the Star Trek franchise. 2018, The Wrap said that Q would be at the top of the list if he was included with ranking 39 main cast members of the Star Trek franchise prior to Star Trek Discovery. And in 2018, CBR ranked Q the number 1 best Star Trek reoccurring character. Would you guys agree with that? Or is there something else that stands out?
Oh.
Tough one, right?
It
Best
was
Star
always
Trek.
it was always an event when you saw Q in the coming
Yes.
attractions. You always kind of like were going like, yay,
This
You knew
is
things were going up a
a
level.
good episode. Not that there were terrible or bad episodes, but you were like, this is going to be a solid episode.
Josh in the chat says, no love for Lieutenant Rowe. I love
Well-
Rowe. I'm a big Rowe fan. I know someone here on the panel is not a Rowe fan, if I remember correctly. Right? Someone? No?
The actress that played Lieutenant Rowe was also
Forbes.
in one of my favorite Carpenter movies, Escape from LA.
Ah, there you go. Yeah. California,
It might be me.
too. Yeah.
I
I think
can't
someone-
remember.
Yeah, I think someone said they weren't a fan of Rowe, so I was kind of curious about that. Well, guys, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. First of all, thank you guys so much for joining us. These are the Q episodes, the Fan Collective. Let's go ahead and wrap things up. First, we want to tease the next episode we'll be discussing live here on Monday night here on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. Please subscribe so you get notifications. Give us a like and share. We appreciate that. We're going to be talking about the episode Hide in Q, and it was alluded to a little bit here about what happens, what we're going to be seeing with the powers given to someone else, and that would be Riker. How is he going to handle the powers of the Q in the next episode here? So we'll get into that next week. This is a Union Federation here on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN. Amy, first of all, let us know what's happening over at the BQN and how we can reach you.
Well, you usually can hear me co-hosting All Good Things, which is a podcast just covering all the fun tropes and like Q episodes. That would be a series. So we are putting that on hiatus as we start our YouTube show, The View Screen, which will be airing Sunday, October 5th, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. We would love to see all of you in the chat there on Sunday morning. It's a great, fun little Star Trek talk show. So I host it with Kelvin in the UK. And we've got a wonderful guest. In fact, Trivia with Jim, who is in the comments, Jim McMahon, will be there as well as
Awesome.
one of our guests. Yes. So this is just coming full circle. So please find us at BQN Podcasts, and we will see you there.
Thank you. And how can we get a hold of you personally?
Oh, yeah. You can find me Facebook in our Federation, in our Facebook group, and BQN Podcasts.
Awesome. Haley, how can we reach you?
You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. I'm at Trekkie01D. And I'm in our group, but I'm really quiet.
All right. Let's go to Gary here. Gary, first of all, thank you for defecting over here to the Fandom Podcast Network. Had a lot of fun discussing Alien Earth with you there on the Spacebook Live with our good friend Dan Hadley. And it's also nice to know you're right down the street from me, sort of. You're here in
Yes.
Southern California. So, yeah.
Yes, I am. It's great that we're so close. This has been great. I actually love coming on and talking about something I actually enjoyed watching. Unlike the total alien Earth, because I had problems with that. But no, this was great. You can find me, as you just said, on Thursdays on the Type 40 podcast, on Saturdays on the Spacebook, as you said, with the inimitable Dan Hadley, talking about all sorts of things. And you can find me on Discord as RetroDoc, Facebook as Gary Akers, and on X as Gary A_retro. And it has been such an amazing pleasure to talk about really my first fandom love here. So thank you for the privilege.
You bet. Yeah, we want you back, so feel free. So, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, Gary, if you survive the P corner, you're welcome back.
All right, Robert, I want to get you on here next. Now, Robert, I know you're not on social
Sorry, no
media.
socials. I don't do it.
But that's okay. I just want to say, first of all, real quick, thank you for reminding me to watch The Wizard here. I had not seen it before. I watched it. I had a little double feature here with Cloak and Dagger, and thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll talk about that more later. But just tell me, what are you diving into when it comes? Because I know you're in a 80s, 90s kind of thing right now, revisiting. What have you been watching recently that you've been enjoying?
Okay, so I thought it was interesting you guys just brought up Alien Earth, because I just finished that. That's the new thing I just finished. But I'm right now I'm rewatching Knight Rider.
Yeah,
having a blast, because I had a Huffy bicycle with the kit dash on the front and a little light, and I had a Knight Rider lunchbox. I was
that makes me a question, because if you're rewatching Knight Rider right now, does it sound weird knowing it's Mr. Feeney coming out of kit?
When I started it, my wife actually said that in the background. She said, "That's Feeney." Well, yeah.
Boy meets girl. Kyle,
my kid met him.
Kyle, how can we get a hold of you, sir?
Well, first of all, I do want to let Robert know, now that Kevin's talking about the Wizard, I'm making it mandatory he buys a power glove.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
They're so expensive right now on eBay.
Hey, that movie is a near and dear to my heart movie.
Yeah. As far as finding me, if you want to find me, of course you can find me all over the Fandom Podcast Network, Facebook groups, and on our Twitter sites, and all of our social medias on the Fandom Podcast Network. If you want to find me personally, you can find me on Facebook, Kyle Wagner. You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW. You can find me on Blue Sky at AKyleW. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. And real quick, too, I just got to do a personal shout out to my dad. Happy birthday, Dad. Love you.
Yay. Happy birthday, Don. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
That's awesome. I want to shout out everyone in the chat, too. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Chris, for jumping in there. G.I. Joe RPG Stories, everyone else. We really appreciate you guys participating and sharing this fun. Please join us here Mondays live, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Please subscribe, share it. I appreciate that. You can find Union Federation podcast. The fpnet.podbean.com is our master feed there as well. You can also join our Federation Podcast Facebook group. We're on Instagram as well, and X, and you can also email us at unionfederation@gmail.com. My name is Kevin. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on all the socials at Spartan_Phoenix. Make sure you reach out to me there. That'd be great. And also, too, we have some love. If you want to go ahead and go to TeePublic, we have an awesome TeePublic selection of shirts, including the Union Federation shirt. You can also get that as a red shirt, too, or the mug that Haley has right over there. Showcase that there, Haley. I want to see that there. Look at that. Yeah. So we get a little kickback, and it helps the quantum drive here on the Union Federation. Guys, thank you so much, Haley, Robert, Gary, Amy, Kyle, and everyone in the chat. We really appreciate
you. Thank you for having me, and thank you to your audience. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all. This has been a blast. Great way to start this series. We got a lot more to discuss, a lot more fun Q discussion, and yeah, thank you very much. Anyway, guys, as we always say, first of all, live long and prosper, and without a doubt, this is the weirdest ship in the fleet. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much.